So welcome, my name's Andy Ford and I'm a UK skydiver. I've been skydiving in the UK about 30 years and I like to try new disciplines, and I thought, having been asked for a few years to do a chat about stuff, I wasn't really sure what I had to give really to the seminar. I've done a couple on sky surf and stuff from days gone past, and then after last year's expo they asked me to do a chat, and I thought, well, the XRW is something that I'm playing with. That's it's a new part of the sport, something that you do see on Facebook, but you're not really seeing it. It's not a prolific part of the sport, partly because it's quite difficult to do. And so I've put together a little seminar, not because we are doing high-end XRW stuff, but just because we are involved and we're understanding the intricacies and difficulties of it. So I thought I'd try and put it out there. Because we found it was very difficult, I want to say we, myself, Mark and Ali to start with, found it very difficult to find anything online with regards to XRW. Everyone was kind of keeping it in-house, everyone was keeping their information to themselves, like it was that little secret that they wanted to just do their own stuff, and finding wing loadings and everything else online was almost impossible. So we had to go out and experiment. Okay, so the presentation I've named XRW Then and Now, and you'll find out during that it's been going for quite a while, even though we're still in the infancy stage, especially in the UK. But what I wanted to do is kind of dedicate this to anyone who's done something new, really. Not new as in never been seen before, like the new stuff you see on Instagram and Facebook. But I want to pitch this really and dedicate it to people that are doing new stuff for themselves. So you've been in the sport for a little while, or maybe you're starting the sport off. So from that first terrifying jump, which is new for you, be it tandem AFF, your first solo, your first jump from a lower than normal altitude, your first coach jump, be it free fly, wingsuit, formation skydiving. They're all those fears that you get before you get to the door because they're new to you. What I wanted to kind of pitch this at is this is no different for us than it is for you. So you get out the door on that first FS1 dive and your heart's going, your heart's racing and you're scared. There's no doubt about it. When you get to the door, you're scared of failure, you're scared of performance anxiety, and it's no different for me. I sit there on the way up on a wingsuit jump, especially if I haven't done one for a while, and especially with the XRW because it's new to us and there are possible issues that could happen if we don't get it right. And so I thought, dedicate this to everyone that's done something new, which is pretty much all of you, however many jumps you have. Quick one, how many wingsuit flyers do we have in the room? Sort of audience am I pitching at? Yeah, so we've got plenty of wingsuit flyers. How many high-performance Canopy pilots have we got in the room? I can see a few. Come on, Stuart, get you around that. So, yeah, we've got high-performance Canopy pilots in the room as well. High-performance Canopy pilot is intrinsic to the XRW and a fairly competent wingsuit flyer as well. So I wanted to say, you get to the door and you haven't shied back. You've got out the door and you're facing your fears. You're pushing through them because at the end of the day, whatever you're doing, be it free fly, be it wingsuit, be it XRW, we all go through the same emotions. We all go through the same pre-jump fears. And hopefully, if you're in the sport for long enough, you get the same elation afterwards. And that doesn't matter whether you've got 10 jumps, 100 jumps, 1,000 jumps, 10,000 jumps. You land, and I don't mean doing a tandem or just doing the day-to-day stuff if you're working in the sport, but you come down off of some skydives and you're like a kid. And if you're not coming down off a skydive and you're bouncing around like a kid, high-fiving and having the time of your life, then maybe you should try a new discipline. And maybe you should start again in the sport, in a new discipline, and find that passion and find that thing that makes you drive 2 hours to the drop zone or makes you fly to the Algarve or whatever, to find that feeling. It's a feeling that you can't get from many other sports, I've found, that I get from skydiving. So expand your limitations, constantly push yourself, master new skills and accept new challenges. And I kid you not, you will never get bored of this sport if you push and keep trying to do new things safely. Ask Ali, Brian, Mark or any of the small group of wingsuit flyers that we've worked with and they've all had the moments. And I have to embarrass Ali straight off because I just want to start as I mean to go on before I get to Brian. And when we first did the XRW and we got the first dock and we'd done, just myself and Ali had done maybe 7, 8 jumps. Every time we landed, the lady behind the T-bar at Langer was like, "Did you get the dock, Duck? Did you get the dock?" And I'm like, "We're not trying for a dock, we just want to fly next to each other safely." She went, "Oh, well, you tell us when you get a grip." which I took in both get a grip and also pick up a grip. Bless her. So yeah, everyone was behind us and it was really cool. But when we first got the dock, that wasn't just a tap. The first thing that Ali said on the comms was, "Mark, did you get the shot? Mark, did you get the shot?" And Mark had a camera on and he's 50 foot above us or 30 foot above us, and Mark didn't have comms, so he couldn't reply. So I replied, but we're live and I can't tell you what I said. But we carried on and it was good. See if my PowerPoint works. Here we go. So a look at the XRW, the discipline of XRW. Extreme relative work. It's easier just to show you what we do. Got Brian Vasher, well-known Canopy pilot, who's hiding away at the back. It is in the UK, and that is the edge of a front coming in. To the right-hand side of Brian, you will be surprised to know it was incredibly blue. And this is shot from my point of view. It's on a wingsuit, clearly. It's an incredibly surreal. I mean, it partly captures it watching it, but it's an incredibly surreal moment for both Canopy pilot and wingsuit flyer to know that you're looking at each other in a very different medium, a different discipline. One's got a parachute, one hasn't. Well, one has, but one's packed. This is Brian getting flung around like a rag doll whilst his canopy opens. The removable deployment system, for those of you that haven't done high performance canopy flying. Slider, bridle line, pilot chute, just to get rid of the drag on the top of the canopy, give it a little extra speed. Make the top of the parachute a cleaner wing. So at this stage I'm flying next to Brian, trying to keep it nice and slow, nice and smooth. Try not to move too much. Trying to approach it like I would an FS jump or a free fly jump. And I'm looking at Brian, and he's singing his James Bond theme tune. And we get the dock, and it's our first dock, so it's quite exciting. And I'm looking at him and I'm thinking this is amazing. And at this stage, only one of us has the ability to survive this. This is a view I try not to get too often. It looks like two chicken drumsticks wearing a set of Vans, but the surf dock when we're flying in from behind. And this is not what I'm seeing particularly. This is the GoPro version of what I'm seeing. Clearly I'm not seeing anything from some of these angles. I'll make sure Brian has clean shoes before he gets on board the airplane. And the reason I dive over at the end is because Brian likes a bit of clear airspace for his swoop, and I have to get out of the way. He tells me every time. Okay, so what is XRW? Extreme relative work. So named when the first guys started doing it. The amalgamation of two disciplines, wingsuit flying, high performance canopy flying. Like I said, it's a surreal visual when you're flying along next to someone and they've got a parachute out and you're flying your wingsuit knowing you have to get a parachute out at some stage. But it all feels like time goes on forever because you're just floating along next to someone. For those that wingsuit and do formation wingsuit flying, you will understand what it's like to fly in and take a grip of someone else. And for those of you that are doing four-way, it's the same sort of thing, but you feel like everything's going really fast. With XRW and wingsuit flying, everything seems to take a longer time. It seems to be a much more gentle approach, a much longer time span. So the challenge in the XRW for us is not only in the sky, clearly whilst flying the formations, but in the concept and creation of new things to do. Previously unseen ideas showing different flyers' individual takes on the discipline, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is only limited by the skill level and imagination of your Canopy pilot and your wingsuit flyer, and obviously, of course, a bit of spare cash. It's an opportunity to mix and change roles for the team. Both Mark and I fly camera. I love to fly camera, and we both wingsuit fly. So we take it in turns to try the different disciplines within XRW. And they come with their own challenges. I've been humbled on more than one occasion with camera, wearing big camera systems and flying in to try and take that shot, or trying to go up front of the canopy to look backwards and then just suddenly falling out the sky whilst trying not to burble the canopy pilot. So they both come with their own difficulties. I also think that XRW is a secretly employed way for chief instructors to ensure that the wingsuit flyers are guided back safely to the DZ by an adult. You don't really get to see, so if I'm sat at the front of the plane, I get to see the guys on free fly going out, I get to see the guys doing AFF, I get to see the guys doing tandem going out. You rarely see the wingsuit flyers going out, you don't get out behind them. And I've found for many years in the sport that I can be sat at the front of the plane on a tandem, and I'll watch someone going out the door doing a free fly jump, and I'll be nervous for them. And I'll watch someone going out doing an AFF jump, think, wow, well, I'm doing a tandem. And then sometimes I'll be doing AFF and I look back and go, sod tandems. So it's a perspective. And you don't get to see the wingsuit flyers, so you don't get to get that feeling of watching them get out the door, or very rarely, unless they go out abnormally in the load order. So you only see them get on the aeroplane in skirts, and then you see them when they're tiny little dots under canopy on rear risers trying to get back to the PLA. Look, they're miles away there. They're not coming back, are they? And you see the DZ vehicle disappear for the third time that morning. So there's lots of different perspectives. So yeah, beautiful and surreal images for us, and then stuff that we hopefully put in magazines and stuff afterwards to try and share what we do. A challenge for us as both canopy pilots especially and wingsuit flyers, and we get to mix the roles in the group. So the history of XRW. I've got a shot of Brian standing on the magic carpet we know as Mark Harris, flying over Hinton drop zone earlier in 2018. You can tell because the fields are a nice summery yellow. The first XRW doc was back in 2002. April 20th, 2002, Jari Korsoma, who was a Finnish skydiver, and Vladi Pacer, some of the old and bold in here, yeah, I am looking at you, Stuart, will know both guys from jumping out into land back in the 90s. We started wingsuiting in the UK 99 onwards, wingsuit in Europe 96 onwards, and the concept of flying with a canopy, even though we're now seeing it on Instagram pretty much every day and on Facebook every day, 2002, these guys were putting together the first canopy and wingsuit doc, which for me is humbling, because 2002, I mean, there's a lot of skydivers in this room who hadn't even thought about being skydivers in 2002, right? And these guys were Jari and Vladi, 17 attempts, which sounds a lot, but having done jumps with Ali and Brian, 17 attempts is not a great deal. And they got out of a plane over to land, and you've got to also understand that the guys on the drop zone had never seen anything like this before, and as the chief instructors will attest, when you get two guys on the drop zone that go, oh, can we do this? And they're like, really? So they did it on the 17th and 18th attempt just to prove to the naysayers, as Jari said, that they could do it more than once. We've got a little video. I don't know how well it's going to look on here because it is from 2002. Which some of you may not remember, but we used to have side mount cameras that were really small compared to the GoPros we've got today. In fact, 2002, we'd have been using the little side mount Sonys. So he's on a PD Velo 84, and Jari was on a Skyflyer 3. I still have a Skyflyer 3, which was the wingsuit to have in 2001 onwards. 13 kilograms of lead. I thought it was a little bit more than that. I spoke to Jari this week to try and get a figure out of him. I thought it was more around 40 kilograms of lead from what I remember hearing at the time. Jari thought it was 13, but Vladi was a big lad anyway. So to put lead on, and he had cleated risers. Do you know what cleated risers are? Hands up if you do not know what cleated risers are. Okay, cleated risers are front risers that have a tiny little device sewn onto the riser and an extra strap on the front riser. And as you pull the front risers down, it shortens the front riser and locks it. So you change your angle of attack under the canopy. You can get a faster drive. It's a quicker descent rate. They are an amazing piece of kit if you want your parachute to go faster. However, they don't always want to release. Sometimes one releases, sometimes both release, sometimes neither release, and so you now have a highly loaded canopy flying at the ground with shorter front risers than it was designed by the manufacturer to have. But they are great when they work well. More of that later. So the downsides of the cleated risers are when they work well, they give you a better attempt at the XRW, and when they don't work so well, they give you less of a good attempt at the landing. I did not edit the music. So we're in DeLand, Florida, Twin Otter. So compared to the wingsuits you see today, the suits that we're using for XRW and the bigger race suits, these suits are fairly tiny. I think now if I tried to do this with the Skyflyer I have, and if we had someone on a Velo 84 loaded the same as Vladdy, I think I'd struggle massively to get anything other than a collision, not a dock. I could definitely hit him, but I don't know if it would be pretty. And you can see the descent rate from Yari. It was more of a, I'll steal that ribbon off your shoe as I go past. It wasn't really, as you can see there, yeah. I can laugh at this, but I've actually done that on the suits we've got now quite often, just gone past, and it's been a solo attempt at wingsuit. Stop that there. So we move on. That was 2002. We move on to 2012, and we move to wingsuiting. Started to become more, I say mainstream, we're in 2018 now, and it's still not mainstream, but it started to sort of come up again. People had faster canopies with the velocities that were getting smaller. People were wearing bigger wingsuits, better descent rates, different forward speeds, and so John Tagle, Jeff Knibeloff, which I'm going to say the name, and Taya Weiss put together the Raise the Sky project in Dubai, and Dubai funded the whole project. Mark Harris, who we have here, who's still heavily involved with our XRW scene and in the worldwide wingsuit scene for the records and things, was one of the cameramen with Jeff. And these guys went out, spent, was it a week and a bit out there, jump, lots of different things, canopy transfers, putting people onto people's backs, XRW, dropping one person onto another, 2 stacks as you can see here, so you're doing a bit of CF on high performance canopies and doing a bit of XRW. One of my favourite shots, which I don't have the clip sadly, is when they've got the Mr. Bill, so they've gone out with the guy on the front, they've got a little cleat system so he's hanging off him, they turn him round and he goes to drop him onto the wingsuit flyer as he comes up underneath, and they want to do an in-air transfer. The in-air transfer didn't quite work, the guy fell off the side and disappeared, and so it actually they kicked the wingsuit flyer, so he went unstable and disappeared out of the shot, and so the guy's now hanging under a canopy, still flying along, but there's no wingsuit flyer there, so the game's over, right? Not so. Jeff Knibeloff flew in as the cameraman, popped up underneath, took the guy on his back and flew away. But there's no footage of it because Jeff was the cameraman and all his cameras were facing forwards. So you can find it on online. It's quite a good scene. So there's 5 canopy pilots, 6 wingsuit flyers, all pre-chosen rock stars with lots of jumps, and the ability to work together as a team safely and do some very cool stuff. Just because you're a good swooper doesn't mean you're going to be a good XRW pilot. There's a lot goes into it. They were jumping PD Velocity 71s. They had cleated risers because I was out there at the time doing some work, and I helped the rigger and one of the guys put them together. So they all had their new cleated risers which they were using, and Jonathan Tagle says that the biggest pain with them was only having the left one release on a 71 velocity when you're hooning at the ground with 10 kilograms of lead on. So this footage was shot by Mark and Jeff. And it shows, even in 2012, how far it had come from where Vladdy and Yari were. But even then, some of it is a little sketchy. When you see the wingsuit flyers, how hard they're working, the different positions and shapes they seem to be throwing. It's not as smooth as some of the newer stuff with the higher performance canopies is. He's definitely throwing some shapes just to get that dock. And it can be a one-shot deal. You take the dock and then you drop your knees or you drop a wing and you're out the game, and that's it, the skydive's over. And if you manage to do that at 12,000 feet or 11,000 feet, it's a long skydive for both of you solo. I had plenty of excuses when I was with Ali. His hand was so big I was getting burble over my wing, which was dropping me out. I couldn't think of any other reason, because every time I went to get a dock, I'd wobble and fly away, and I definitely put it down to Ali's massive hands. I actually found out afterwards that it was probably down to we have an incompatible wing loading and fall rate. So non-contact XRW, formation flying, and then the docked XRW, both difficult. I think this stuff is easier to do than the docked flying. Same as most things, you can get a group out of angle flyers and get them to cruise along quite nicely together. But when you start to take the docks, it can get a little bit more difficult. Meanwhile, this is going on in California. You've got a guy called TJ Langren. Look up TJ. He's got 20,000 plus jumps. Jumps at Lodi. Jumps every day. He jumps very small canopies, very highly loaded every day. He doesn't have them just for swooping. That's his go-to canopy. Is his 63 layer or Petra, and that's what he does. He's a bit of a machine. He was building a reputation on the west coast of the States whilst these guys were doing that. I think he's got something like 1,800 XRW jumps. He does both the CP role, the canopy piloting role, and he does the role of wingsuit flyer as well. He's got about 300, 400 wingsuit XRW jumps. He started on an Icarus VX, for those of you that remember the original 9-cell Icarus VX. And they tried all different canopy combinations. And he oddly came up with the fact that the velocity when loaded over 3.6, and that may be a wing loading that you might not get to yourself, but over 3.6, the velocity literally flattened out from its glide path and went flat, and it was nigh on impossible to stay with. So up to 3.4, 3.5, they had great success. 3.6. For whatever reason, aerodynamically, it leveled out. The weight was so much, it just tipped the nose up and it stopped descending. And so the wingsuit flyers, thinking it's going to be easier with the higher weights, just cruised on past. Nice footage. Okay, UK scene. So 2016, a little bit of time off during the week because I'm mostly sort of weekends doing work at the drop zone closest to me. I wanted to do something else. I wanted to freshen up my sport again, having done wingsuiting for a number of years. And so I'd seen all the stuff on Facebook. I've got friends that do XRW. I chatted to Mark about it. And so I got in touch with Ali Milne, and I was just looking for someone stupid enough to jump my canopy highly loaded. Ali said yes. Ali said yes, he had a Velo 84 or something at the time, or a Valkyrie 84. And I had the 75, so we loaded my 75 up. Mark had designed a sandbag on the front so you could wear. We would weigh Ali before each jump, fill it full of sand so that it gave us the wing loading we wanted. We were quite critical about this because, as I said earlier, you can't find this stuff online. There was nowhere for us to go, oh, this is the magic number. So we tried a 3.0, tried a 3.1, 3.2, bearing in mind we didn't want to stick so much weight on Ali that he was then getting a problem on landing. And it is putting the canopy pilot in quite a difficult position when you just keep adding weight to them willy-nilly, because it's quite difficult for me to stay with them. So I'll just give him another couple of burgers. But we found that with this particular setup, because it's sand and because it's in a big front-mounted sack, you can cut the sand away if you have an issue. So if you have a reserve ride, you can cut the sand away, and then you're down to a normal wing loading, so you're not going to be overloading your reserve. I don't think anyone else is using this sort of system. It's fairly ugly, if I'm honest. It looks like you're smuggling a massive bag of sand somewhere. But it does work, and it has been tested. Everyone else uses normal weight belts or smaller canopies, and we had a dilemma. We had the Valkyrie 75. Ali was a PD-sponsored pilot. We were not going to get a Peregrine because the Peregrine at the time by PD was for chosen pilots only. And so we were stuck with using a 7-cell parachute, which would only fly at a certain speed, however much you loaded it. And the 7-cell and the 9-cell are different animals. So you looked at all the pictures of people with the backfly docks and doing the hand docks and the surf docks and doing multiple points. And it was the best we could do to fly next to each other and get a grip and maybe fly it for 8 to 10 seconds. And I literally would fall away and not get another chance. And it's very frustrating. And it's no more frustrating than not being able to dock on a 4-way or, you know, sitting watching all your mates in a 20-way as you go low. That's also frustrating. So I've, a lot of the time, been doing a solo wingsuit cursing myself and my lack of ability, whilst Ali is on my canopy up there, flying along, not fast enough. We had comms. We were very lucky we had Bluetooth comms, so I could tell Ali when I was being rubbish, and he could laugh at me, and then do 360s under the canopy to fly a little faster. Excuse me. So we started off at 3.2, ended up at 3.5. I used the PF Hunter. You can see it's a very square, very floaty wingsuit by Phoenix Fly. We managed to get some nice shots, and we did maybe 50 jumps. We got Mark to come along because we obviously wanted to document it. It's nothing like a selfie, is there, Ali? We like pictures of ourselves. We put them on Facebook, and we wanted to show the world that we were doing some cool stuff, and we wanted to promote Langer Drop Zone as well. Mark rocked up. He had a slightly different wingsuit. He's got the Squirrel Freak, which also works very well. The smaller the wingsuit, the more power you need in the canopy. The bigger the canopy, the bigger the wingsuit you need. So you have to find that compatible area. But that's no different than doing a formation skydive where you've got someone who can fly, literally their fastest fall rate is 119 or 120 miles an hour. And then you've got someone else whose slowest fall rate is 125 miles an hour. And you are both on the ragged edge and you are trying to stay with each other and you can see each other and you may be able to get a grip. Pretty much that's game over, right? You're not doing anything else. And it's about flying compatible. And it took a while for us to manage to get that. We have wing loading up to 3.4 we found was comfortable. Our forward speed was about 63 to 68 miles an hour for you guys that are on a wingsuit. We used an app on the phone as well as a fly site, and we found that they were mostly reading out the same. And our descent rate was about 36 to 42 mile an hour. So it's quite a critical point where at the wingsuit you have to be able to fly at that forward speed, at that descent rate, and it teaches you a huge amount about flying your wingsuit. If you fly with other people, then they make adjustments for you and you make adjustments for them and you fly around the sky and it's great fun and you think you're awesome. That's just me. But when you're flying with a static object that does not change speed, you suddenly realise how difficult it is to maintain a certain trajectory, certain angle, certain speed. And that, it wasn't a shock, but it was a big learning curve, let's put it that way. And so we did some nice stuff, got mag covers, got some other bits and bobs, which was what we wanted. 2017, we were very busy, we did a little bit, not so much. And then at my home drop zone at Hinton, Brian Vasher was coming up during the week sometimes, coaching, doing his Flight 1 stuff. And I just mentioned that I'd like to do some XRW. We'd seen him at Langer as well doing Flight 1 stuff, so we wanted to kind of get involved with him, but he was busy. And then it worked out that we managed to get it together. And it changed the game a little bit for us because as a PD team member, Brian had the Peregrine. So the Peregrine is the 9-cell version of their highest performance canopy. And once you start jumping the 9-cell and you start putting the same sort of wing loading on it, it gives you a totally different, game-changing flight. So Brian was our canopy pilot. Myself, Mark Harris, of course, because we like to switch out on the camera. We then asked Jamie, who's a friend of mine, and Craig, who both jump wingsuits at our drop zone, we invited them to come down, stand on the outside or sit on the outside, watch it, get comfortable with it. They were both gagging to do the XRW. A lot of wingsuit flyers are, but we wanted to do it in a very controlled way. We didn't just say, yeah, let's get in and dock on it. We've all done it. We've all been at the drop zone where you've gone out and you've done that 8-way sit fly jump and wish it had been a 2-way. That's fine. You can get away with it. The downside with the XRW is if you start treating it like that, you can have some pretty big problems, and they are instant. And we'll have a little look at that later. So the 67 and 71, the wing loading was 3.3 to 3.5. Our first jump was Brian going out clean, no weight, on a 70, and I found I could fly next to him, but it wasn't that much different than the Valkyrie loaded. George is a good cook. Brian doesn't need that much weight. So we found that if I sneaked a little bit of weight on him, it made my life easier. And then we put him on the 67, and that made my life a lot easier. And we found a magical point at about 3.4 to 3.5 wing loading, where we got multiple attempts. We could fly in, pick up a grip, and if I dropped away, I could just lift up, fly back in, pick up another dock, try a surf dock, drop away, pop back up, and it suddenly became like formation skydiving. It suddenly became like 4-way, where you can just keep picking up grips, looking at each other, having fun. We also had the upside, we had comms, so we could talk to each other if I was having an issue staying with him. And Brian realised quite soon that just saying, come on mate, try harder, doesn't work. It not only doesn't work, it makes you more tense, if I'm honest. So it started to work, and we started to up the speed a little bit, 65 to 72, more speed, more lift. So that means we could fly slower. We're getting a 40 to 46 mile an hour because the Peregrine loaded flies a little bit differently. Oop, let's go back one. Boom. And so things were going well. So 2.8 big floaty suits required. Wingsuit flyer is the edge of his ragged speed curve, and trying to maintain a comparable forward speed with the CP, it makes everything difficult. You only get one shot at it. And we found out that 3.4 to 3.5 works. We got set scales at our drop zone because we like to make sure our tandem students aren't sneaking over the weight limit. And so I would put Brian on the scales before every jump. He loved that. And didn't really see the need for it. Brian wanted to just get on with it. Just get out there and just come and hit me with your gloves, and I'll catch you. And I wanted to write some stuff down. I wanted to document stuff. I wanted to get the weights out there and the magic numbers out there to make it easy for everyone, really, because I think everyone should enjoy, trying to do this. And so we've had some good success. We've had some nice pictures. There's been a couple of articles in the magazines. You might have seen some stuff we've put on Instagram and other bits and bobs. So that's us in the UK at the moment. We haven't done. I'm working away. It's the winter, clearly, and this summer we'll get back on it. I'm hoping that more people. I know that some Langer guys are looking to do some stuff. It's tough, right? Finding a canopy pilot is the tough bit. Okay. I recommend wingsuit flying. If you've got 300 or 400 wingsuit jumps, you're on a big wingsuit, then if you're going to start doing XRW, then take it slow. XRW is the canopy piloting side of things. It's not the time to try that 3.5 wing loading when you first XRW jump. If you haven't jumped a canopy at 3.5, 3.3, maybe go and do 50, 60, 100 jumps. If you're not a competition pilot and you're jumping, let's say a Petra, because you don't have to be a sponsored athlete to get one, and you're loading it high, then don't get out the plane doing XRW on it. That would be a little bit of advice from myself. So, what's happening around the world? We've got Pete Allen in Spain. We've got a beautiful picture of Pete here flying, doing a surf dock or rodeo dock on Danny Romain with Max Haim on camera and the porter in the background, and with a beautiful sunset. So that's nice. Pete's out there doing stuff. I've chatted to Pete quite a lot about what he's doing. He's got some nice projects coming up. Jarno Cordia, I don't know, you guys who have done wingsuiting will have heard of Jarno. He's an amazing guy. He's in the wingsuit tunnel a lot, so his flying is superb. I'm going to show you a little bit of a video. It's very short, but for me, this captures XRW and how beautiful it can be in one easy video. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's beautiful 4K. Always slows the frame rate down to make it a little smoother, but it's beautiful. And it's coming to a drop zone near you, Stuart. We haven't landed off yet. So yeah, that's Jarno stuff. That's the Need for Speed team. They're out in Florida with a guy called Ian Jensen. Ian's doing some amazing stuff. He's one of the top Canopy pilots in XRW at the moment. We've got a friend of mine out in Washington and Kapowsin. That's where the Squirrel guys operate. That's where they do all their promo videos. These guys are pretty hardcore. This guy's name is Larry Yunt. He's a free flyer and wingsuit flyer. Larry's the Canopy pilot in this shot. It's a wicked shot taken from underneath the wing with a magnetic camera, which is pretty cool. Looking down, surf dock, someone coming into dock. Larry sent me this video and I asked him to put something to me. And this is with the 360 Fusion, which is something Brian went out and bought the day after we used someone else's. We borrowed one and the next day he had one. It gives you a very unusual perspective. Now we're starting to use multiple canopies, multiple wingsuit flyers. This ups the danger level quite a bit, and that's not to make it. That's not to try and make it sound like it is inherently dangerous. But the burble zone there for moving forward of one of those canopies. Think about being taken out flying over the top of a flat flyer, or being taken out flying over behind a wingsuit flyer. You can make a canopy collapse in a quarter of a second. And when I opened this shot, he sent me this, and when I opened this, I just had to laugh because it looks like they've edited two videos together. He's happily flying past a 14-way CF Diamond, casually as you do. So, yeah, Larry, that's his Instagram. So some technical stuff. Important choices. Let me go through choices. Choose the right teammates. That sounds stupid, isn't it? But we've all picked people up on the flight line and gone and done a skydiving and thought, maybe that wasn't my best choice. Assess your own skill set. You've got to be a little bit humble when we come to skydiving, and a lot of us aren't a lot of the times, and sometimes we grow out of it and sometimes we don't. Assess your own skill set. If you think you're good at something, then, if you think you're good at wingsuiting, then go and fly with other wingsuit flyers and build your skill set up. Don't throw yourself out there and go, yeah, mate, I can fly next to a canopy, and cause issues because your skill set isn't what you think it should be. And to be honest with your teammates, approach everything slowly. The stuff that we've done so far, we've taken it at a pace where we don't want to kill each other. This is one of those things where you can very easily get hurt, and we don't want to do that. Canopy choice, currency. Currency is a big one, right? Straight after the winter, we haven't jumped for a while. If Brian hasn't gone and done a training camp or hasn't jumped for 2 months, it's probably not the best thing to do. Is I've got a winter of tandems, come back, put the wingsuit on, him put the canopy on, and go out and see if we can't make some mistakes. So it's not the right time to try it. We talked about the fact that don't go sticking 3.5 on and getting out the door on your first highly loaded canopy. And don't surround yourself by all your mates on the drop zone who want to do XRW. All the wingsuit, I can't tell you the amount of people that message me, go, dude, when you do an XRW, I want to come down, I want to try it. And we are slowly involving people that we know are good on recommendation. So Mark's got friends that have come down. Aussie Dave's come down, has been very safe, sat on the outside with a camera, and then sort of slowly over a few jumps got closer. And that's how we want to build it. We don't want to just throw 10 wingsuit flyers out and scare some poor canopy pilot half to death. Because you only need one person to fly in front of that canopy when there are other people around it, and suddenly you have a canopy which is flying the wrong way instantly, or it's got twists, and you are in amongst a group of wingsuit flyers. I can't stress how quickly it happens and how dangerous it can be. So start small, increase the group, and don't get drawn in by the YouTube video crowd and the Instagram pics. Jumpers with 10,000 jumps make it look easy. Super easy. That's for all disciplines, right? We watch the swoopers, we watch the guys. I watch people swoop every day, and I just think, well, how easy does that look? And then you go and get wet. So your canopy choices, we've talked about that. You've got the 9 cells and the 7 cells. Your velocities and your Valkyries are more difficult than your layers, than your peregrines and your petras. And there's also the fluid wings. And then for the wingsuit flyers, your medium to larger size suits. But you can go too fast. If you get on something like a sea race, then you are literally going to race past it. You are never going to stay with the forward speed of the canopy. So you have to be wise in your choice of wingsuit, same as any other part of the discipline. You have to be wise in your choice of suit when you do FS, suit when you do free fly. So approach it with the same thing. You want to be able to be compatible with the people you're jumping with. Okay, cameras. It depends what you want, right? So you can wear the 360 Fusion, which for us is great. It's great fun. We'll take good pictures with it. It gives you a good view from the outside if you don't have another canopy pilot. Another wingsuit pilot with a camera on. If you're going to jump with GoPros, be careful where you put them. And that's the same for jumping big camera systems. Like I said earlier, I've been humbled on a couple of occasions jumping a big camera system to get that shot. And finding it has changed the performance of my wingsuit with multiple cameras on my head to the point where I either can't catch it, and I've spent 90% of the skydive trying to get there, only to catch break off, which is fairly frustrating. And I've also got to it and then sunk out past it simply because I've been thinking about getting a shot, and it can be incredibly difficult. So maybe go up a size in wingsuit if you're flying camera. Give yourself that extra range so that you can outfloat it. To get the shot that you want. Bluetooth comms. Can't stress how good the Bluetooth comms has been and how terrible the Bluetooth comms has been, listening to some of the chatter. If it's not going well, there's nothing better than communication. If it is going well, there's nothing better than communication. We can all woohoo down in the microphone. But if it's not going well, and you can explain to someone mid-skydive why it's not going well for you, you can totally change the skydive. We can assist each other. And that's happened with Ali, putting a 360 in. And it's happened with Brian when he's saying to me, I just don't understand your lack of skill set. And I'm growling at him while he's singing to me. And it makes a difference. Can you just give a bit of front riser? Can you stick your legs out? Just give me some more drag. What you may not realise is if you are bringing your knees up, then you have less of a profile. The canopy flies quite steep. If you open yourself up into a big position, the canopy then gets more drag and flies steeper. Sorry, if you're small, you're flatter. If you open up the body position, the canopy flies at a higher angle of attack. So basically, just by going really big and flying out, he can change the angle and descend quicker if I'm struggling. Just maybe for me to get back up and get myself together. But if it's going really well, he can go a little bit smaller, and then we have that comparable speed. So we can change with each other, but the comms is the key. We use the Scala G9, which is a motorcycle system, and works very well for us. Running. I won't spend too long on running. We are very lucky at Hinton. We've been working with the drop zone, and they've allowed us to not only get out last and quite deep, so within the confines of our flight zone, but also give a turn on the aircraft. So I give the pilot a quick knock, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through this. This is a 360 cam of one of our flights. We're on the run and everyone else has got out. What we found is easier, and I'm pointing out where the GPS is to the pilot in case he's lost it. Give him a quick, give us a 90 degrees left or a 70 degrees left. And once we're left of the drop zone, if you think about it, we've run up the flight line, we turn left a little, now the drop zone is down here. It takes out a turn that we would have to generally make in the skydive. And for those of you that have wingsuit and tracked and angle flown, the times when you lose the formation are the times when the formation changes direction. So the less direction changes, the better. So what we do is, we're not quite 90 degrees, we give ourselves a little option to go wide if we're getting back too early, but it gives us less turns in the skydive. I give Brian a few seconds to get out. He gets his RDS sorted and gets the brakes off. You would not believe, unless you watch it, how quick the Canopy picks speed up. It isn't half brakes. On a Peregrine and on a Valkyrie, it's like a third brakes. It's weird. When you go, or two-thirds brakes, you go from what feels to me as a wingsuit flyer a very slow speed, and then I watch him pop the brakes, and it's like he's gone second, third, fourth gear, and suddenly it's off. So it's not like half brakes 10 mile an hour to 20 mile an hour. It's more like 15 mile an hour to 25, 30, 50, 70 miles an hour. It changes so quickly. So the quicker that our Canopy pilot gets the brakes off and starts flying, the quicker I can get out, dive hard, and I'm already at that glide slope and speed that I need. It's not going to change partway through and then surprise me, and then I have to recalibrate what I'm doing. And then we fly in, and it's like anything. You approach a formation, you see it on the videos, people approach a formation on the Freakout Fridays and they do not decelerate. And they either take it out or they fly past it. And so you have that buffer zone. Fly for the first 75% of the distance hard and fast, and then decelerate. And as you get another 50% towards it, decelerate again. And once you get it to the point we have now, we don't stop and then go for the dock. We've managed to get it where we can fly in and then breeze in for the dock. And that's an amazing feeling. That's like flying down, mushing off, and just picking up your formation. Okay, that's that point where you know you've started to suss things and they're coming together. Like I said, we have multiple opportunities. Here I'm a little bit too far forward, and it doesn't look so on the camera. Brian's arms aren't long enough anyway. They needed to be Mr. Tickle arms for this particular dock, but I'm now 25 feet out the front. That would have been game over not so long ago. Now I can turn out, get lift. I'm now above, I can slide in from behind, get up next to it, take another approach, and get a nice dock. So with our correct wing loading on a good canopy, with a canopy pilot who can stay straight and no harness turns, works out a peach. We've managed to work out some really nice docks, and we've got some new stuff that we're going to do in the future. What next? Oof, well, big ways. Dynamic XRW, don't know if you've seen the stuff, look on Instagram at David Ludwig Jr. out in Dubai. He's doing stuff where he's docked, he's doing the surf dock or a backfly surf dock, so he's got his feet under the chest wrap as you saw Larry do, and then they're doing the barrel rolls, and they're barrel rolling around other canopies, they're barrel rolling around other wingsuit flies. It's insane stuff. Competition XRW, we've got a quick video, running out of time. So a quick video of the XRW FS. This is started by Pablo Hernandez from the PD team. Everything gets competitive, it's skydiving, right? We all want to show that who's the best, who's the fastest, whatever. And a lot like the FS, this is a points-based skydive. Boom. Chest dock, foot dock.
Andy Farrington.
Yeah, Andy Farrington and Larry. And it's, I mean, it's super smooth. And you got the guys out in Dubai, Matt, Nick, with Pablo. It hasn't taken off. It hasn't been given the traction I hope it will get. I think that's because XRW is fairly niche. But something like that. This is the latest cover of Parachutist. We got Ian Jensen, who you saw in the Need for Speed video, with Will Kitto flying through a 14-way diamond. Great visuals for all, and a fantastic picture opportunity. So this is the stunt sort of thing, right? We're going to get more media attention. What if it all goes wrong? Got a quick clip. There are no fly zones. Do not fly out the front of the canopy. If you get your canopy burble, think about a wingsuit when you're flying in behind a formation. You get in the burble, it's hard to fly, it's hard to stay in a good position. That canopy will collapse in an instant, and you can end up in the lines in a moment. If you end up in the lines of a canopy, a highly loaded canopy, there are not a lot of options. Your canopy pilot can only do so much before he's off it. You get left with pretty nylon. This guy's super lucky, but he did nearly get a dock. And luckily I couldn't find much footage online of the guys having problems. I know there's some stuff out there. There's a couple of people I emailed that didn't get back to me quick enough with footage. When you see it, it's instant. Got some Instagram stuff if you like Instagram. Larry number 9, Carlos Pedro based, myself Infinite Skydiving, and Danny Roman. So there's some great stuff out there, and there's mine. But there's some pretty pictures out there. Go and have a look, see the stuff that they're doing. There's some cool video out there as well. I'll pop that back up in a minute. I'd like to thank Langer DZ because they allowed us to start it off with Dave Angela and Rich Wheatley. Anyone who managed to annoy with our antics, some of the Langer crew are here, asking them if they'll do a right-hand pattern, not a left-hand pattern on the wingsuit jumps, while we worked it out and did it safely. And then obviously Hinton DZ with Stuart as the CI for allowing us to be late, prat about, extend the run-ins, change the run-in directions on run-in, and allowing Brian to fill the hangar with his crap. Because unless you've been on a drop zone with Brian, you don't realise how much stuff he brings to a drop zone. So any questions on XRW mostly? I thought. Feel free if you do have questions. There's a lady with a microphone. It's the man right at the back, just to make it easy for you.
You said that you had a speed of 60-something miles an hour. Is that ground speed or air speed? How are you measuring that?
That's off of our. That's off of the fly site, and that's off of our app. So I guess it's our airspeed because our ground speed would be dependent on their upper winds, and crosswind running or upper winds. So
were you going back downwind?
We were going back downwind, but I couldn't tell you what the actual winds were. So it would be our airspeed.
The fly site measures ground speed and the fly site measures ground speed and vertical descent speed. So the because it's a GPS tracker essentially. So our airspeed, our indicated speed, our horizontal speed is ground speed, and will vary depending on whether you're going into wind or downwind, and generally you fly back to the drop zone. But the interesting data, which is true speed, is the vertical descent, and we're averaging on the 67 and the wingsuit speeds at around anywhere from 45 to 55 miles an hour straight down. So that's a true measurement of vertical descent of the system.
There you go. That's it. Alrighty. Okay, thank you very much for your time.